This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Hello, everybody. I want to welcome you guys back to another episode of the GSMC Sports Podcast presented by GSMC Podcast Network. My name is Chris Blades, and before I get started today, I want to make sure I take the time out to remind you, as always, if you haven't already, subscribe to the podcast. Make sure you never miss an episode. Make sure you're always on top when we drop our latest stuff. Also, if you could, please as well, give us a 5-star rating, write us a review. Very appreciated, very helpful. Lots of what you guys like. If you guys dislike the ways we can improve, all that fun stuff. And also, if you're on social media, we're on social media, so you can find us there. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. We can talk, we can chat, we can debate, we can discuss. And at least for Clayton Kershaw and Dodgers' sake, the discussion on talk shows tomorrow won't be about how Kershaw is a choker. Again, I mean, not because that was the conversation a lot of today. It's just like how he's showing postseason things. Though, as we talked about with his last game, Game 4 of the NLCS, I think that was, I mean, granted, he didn't have his best stuff. He only gave up, I thought it was like three runs or something like that. I forget if the last run was attributed to him or not. It was either 3 or 4, but it wasn't, but regardless. The biggest issue in that game were, one, the offense did literally nothing, and 2, Dave Roberts left him in too long. Because like I said, there's no reason for him to face Ozuna a second time like that. There was no point in that, in my personal opinion. But that could just be me. But yes, and we also kind of talked about how, like, he kind of, not that he gets a bad rap, because he has had bad games, but at the same time, I think some of it, especially in baseball, like, the manager matters. Like, his decision making matters, whether it's to pinch hit for someone or whether to leave a guy in or to bring a reliever and what reliever to bring in. Like, there's certain things like that matter. And as much as obviously players are out there making the plays, they're making the pitches, they're getting the hits, they're making the plays in the field, making catches, throws, things like that. Sometimes it's important for the manager to save you from yourself, and that's what I feel like over the course of his career, especially in the playoffs, Kershaw hasn't had happen. Like, normally his ERA has always, not always, but it's generally been pretty bad in that 6+ inning range. Like, once he can get through the first 5 kind of okay, but then whenever he gets that 6th inning for whatever reason, that's where things sometimes go haywire. But today, that was not an issue. He was exceptional. Had a little trouble in the first inning. Yeah, I guess he just had to get the jitters out of the way and things like that. So, yeah, but single, got a little pop out. Then he walked to Rosarena. Then he got a strikeout and a ground out. So no harm done. And then after that, he was cruising. Really. Went 1, 2, 3 the next 3 innings in the second, third, and fourth. Gave up a home run in the 5th to Kiermaier, but that was the only other, like, real, I mean, that was the only non-1, 2, 3 inning he had after the first. And even that inning, he gave the home run to Kiermaier with 2 outs, but then he got Zunino to strike out. Just like I said, he was great. Everything you could have hoped for. I mean, not everything, but pretty much what you would have or could have hoped for. If you're a Dodgers fan, if you're Dave Roberts, if you're anybody, really. So went 6 innings, 2 hits, 1 run, 1 walk, 8 Ks. Was getting guys to swing and miss on everything. He had, like, I think they were talking about, had like his second highest whiff total in I forget if it was a playoff game or World Series game or something. Had like 19 swings and misses. So like I said, he was just whatever he was throwing, they just couldn't, they were having trouble picking it up. They couldn't hit it. And I mean, this isn't that big of a surprise, in my opinion. Because like I said, I do think the Rays, I do think the Dodgers, and then definitely not the Rays. I think the Dodgers are going to win. And a lot of it's because that lineup just isn't really that great. Like, as we talk about with the Dodgers, like, they can string together hits, they can manufacture runs and like that. Like, the Rays, on the other hand, are very home run dependent. I think, like, what was it, like 72 or 74% of their runs in the playoffs up until this point, and then obviously even, I don't know what the percentage would be like after game one, have come via the home run. And like they said, I think they led the league in strikeouts in the regular season. So like a record or had a very high strikeout total in the ALCS and in the playoffs in general. Like, if they're not hitting home runs, mainly from Arozarena, like, they're not scoring. Like, that's just not how they manufacture runs. Like, they don't get a hit, then like a stolen base, then like you hit a guy over, then you sacrifice them. Like that, no. It's like they're hitting home runs or they're generally striking out, unfortunately, for the Rays. So, like I said, that's the reason why I was on the Dodgers, because I just think their lineup from top to bottom is better. And, all right, do they have a stable of guys that throw 98? I mean, they have decent relievers, but it's not the Rays bullpen. But I think their starting pitching is better. Like, I trust Walker Buehler and Clayton Kershaw a little bit more than I would trust, like, Glasnow or Blake Snell. Morton, I trust Morton, but like I say, Glasnow in this game, he wasn't that bad up until his last inning, but obviously, again, the numbers will look inflated because last inning, but he had 8 strikeouts in this game in 4 1/3. So again, a majority of his outs were via the strikeout, but the problem is that he had 6 walks. So like I said, it's great to throw hard, it's great to have movement on your pitches, but if your control is not there and you can't locate them, then what good is it doing you? And then plus when guys make contact, it's going a long way, as what happened for the first run the first 2 runs in the fourth. You get up a 2-run homer off Bellinger, and like it was going right off the bat. Because again, if you have a big guy like Bellinger, but even if you don't have a big guy, it doesn't have to be somebody like him. But if you have a guy that can make solid contact, his fastball is going to provide a majority of the power. I think they said it came off the bat like 107. Like I said, obviously Bellinger's a great hitter and everything, but like Glass not throwing upper 90s into the hundreds, like you put good wood on it, it's going to go a long way, and that's what happened. So you get up a 2-run home run to Bellinger, and then the 5th inning happened, and that's really kind of where it all went awry for the Rays in this game and for Glasnow in particular. So in that 5th inning, and as we've kind of talked about, and this is the big thing in the playoffs, is can you stop the bleeding? And as we saw in the championship series, the teams in specific games that could stop the bleeding were the ones that generally won the game. And in this game, the Rays could not stop the bleeding in that 5th inning. So he starts it off with 2 walks, back-to-back walks. That was already a bad sign right there, especially since the top of the order. So it was Betts and Seager, and Betts was able to steal second. Mookie was able to steal second, while Seager was up at bat. Then he struck out Justin Turner, which was nice, but they had a double steal on. So now there's guys at second and third with 1 out. It's basically as if he like sacrificed them over. Like doesn't really change anything. And I said, all right, Justin Turner struck out, cool, but like we still have runners on second and third, 1 out. Max Muncy up. We think we have a good chance there. So now the infield's in. Muncy hits a ground ball to first, and because this was a very good showcase game for like base running for young kids from Mookie Betts, and just an all-around good game from him. But if you wanted to showcase what a good secondary lead could look like in a scenario where you want to try to sneak a run in, Mookie Betts on that ground ball was key, because I think, as they said on like a little like stat graph they showed, he only had to run like 60 feet, like from where he ended up after his secondary to home. And like I said, with that kind of speed and with Yandy Diaz having to throw kind of off balance, it was nearly impossible for him to get the run. It was going to be nearly impossible for him to get Mookie out at home, and obviously Mookie was able to slide in there safely. So they got a run there. Then Will Smith comes up, hits singles to center. Seager scores. Then that was it for Glasnow. Yarborough came in. You got Bellinger to pop out, which was big because it was, like I said, first and third. Now it's 2 outs, but then Chris Taylor singles. That scores a run. And then Kike Hernandez singles, and that scored another run. So in an inning that they came in down 2-1, they leave down 6-1. And, I mean, obviously Kershaw didn't have to pitch after that. Or no, he did come out for the top of 6, and then went 1-2-3 to the top of the Rays order. But, I mean, in fairness, like with the way he was pitching, assuming he didn't completely implode, which, I mean, I guess it was possible, but with what the Rays had showed, you kind of knew, this one's about over. Then the Dodgers got a couple insurance runs in the bottom of the sixth just for good measure. Mookie had a home run, and Muncy doubled in a run. And, yeah, that was it. I mean, they had a little something going in top of the seventh, the Rays did. The Rays scratched a couple runs across, excuse me. But then Zunino kind of got unlucky, even though I think it was going to be a double play anyway, whether or not the guy, Gonzalez, caught it or not. It was a very nice reflex. So shout out to him. And he maybe doesn't even catch that if he's not lefty, because it was like literally right where his glove was. And not to take away from the play, but still, it was a good play. But I think with the way like people are playing with like shifts and things now, I think that Kike Hernandez would have been able to catch it on like one hop or something potentially, or even catch it on the fly if it stayed up long enough. And he probably would have doubled him out anyway. So it was just bad luck. And made good contact, but it was just bad luck. And like I said, even though they were able to get two across after back-to-back hits from Margot and Wendell, and then Brasso singled and Kiermaier singled, but they were, like I said, the double play that ended that, and then that was really the last hope for the Rays, because then they went down 1-2-3 in the eighth and 1-2-3 in the ninth. So, and again, I'm not gonna say game two is like a massive game for the Rays, because like you can go down to, well, as we saw, the Braves came back from down 3-1 last series. The Astros forced the game 7 after being down 3-0, so it's not a must-win game or anything like that. But again, it's a game you prefer to win, especially when it sounds like tomorrow could be a bullpen day. I think they're going with Gonsolin. The guy that started, I think he started the game that Kershaw was scratched from. So was that like game 2 or whatever? He's going up against Blake Snell, so the Rays are going to need a good performance out of Blake Snell tomorrow. Because even though they didn't really tax their bullpen, they didn't pitch any of their main guys, which was a good thing. But again, you don't want to have to, because you only got 4 1/3 out of your starter in this game. You don't want to have to do that again. And like I said, now you're just, even like some of the middle relief arms that may not be your go-to guys or may not be your main guys, you still don't want to, like I said, tie them out in a series where there's more off days, but it's still kind of condensed. But yeah, you're gonna want to have a good performance at one of your better starting pitchers on a day where, you're not facing Buehler, you're not facing Kershaw. Like, those are the games you want to try to win. Again, you're gonna need to win one of the Buehler or Kershaw days if you're gonna win the series. But like I said, after Kershaw, you're not getting Buehler in game 2. I guess they're safe. Yeah, they're probably gonna save him. Well, not probably. They're obviously saving him for game 3, and even potentially bring Kershaw back for game 4, depending on if they want to, because they have the off day Thursday, so they'll be playing Friday, Saturday. If they wanted to, I don't know if they'll save Kershaw for game 5, if there is one, or not. Or maybe let him pitch in game 4 if they're up 3-0. Who knows what the situation could be. Like I said, with neither of them pitching tomorrow, the Rays would prefer to try to win that game. So we'll see what happens. But obviously they're gonna want to get a good performance out of Blake Snell, because, like I said, Glasnow had good stuff. He just wasn't able to control it that well. Because like I said, anytime you walk 6 guys in 4 1/3, that's not great. Even though, like I said, on the flip side, he had 8 strikeouts. So like I said, when he was able to locate the stuff, he was able to get guys to swing and miss. But he wasn't able to locate well enough, and obviously in that 5th inning, I believe it was, the walks did him in, because you walk the first 2 batters of an inning, especially at the top of an order like the Dodgers, it's probably gonna come back to bite you. And it was the bottom of that 5th. Like I said, they scored 4 runs, and that was basically all they needed. They probably didn't even need that many. They literally only needed 2 more. And they scored 4 for good measure, because the Rays were only able to get 3 runs. So we'll see what happens in game 2 on Wednesday. See if the Rays can bounce back, or if the Dodgers can push this up to 2-0. Like I said, they would love to do that. Obviously, with not any game you win without Buehler or Kershaw on the mound is a bonus at this point for the Dodgers. Obviously, again, they think they can win. They're not going out there trying to lose with that lineup. But any game you win when those 2 guys aren't starting is obviously a plus. And then on the flip side, any game you lose without those 2 guys on the mound definitely hurts a little bit more. Because they say Kershaw, you lose to him, all right, it is what it is. Walker Buehler, you lose to him, all right, it is what it is. You're not that caught up over it. But when you start one of the other guys, it's like, hey, we want to try to win this game. So we'll see what the Rays can do, see how they bounce back. Obviously, you're going to need to work on the strikeouts because they struck out 10 times today. Not ideal. Only walked once, so like I said, not that many guys were getting on base in general. So they're going to need to kind of, like I said, they're going to have to find ways to score without hitting home runs. Because that's not sustainable success. It's just like, we have to hit home runs to score. Like, that's not sustainable. We see what happens with the Yankees when they get to the playoffs every year. No shot to the Yankees. But kind of a shot. Like I said, you see what happens to their lineup. Their lineup is a power hitting lineup with very few guys that make consistent hard contact. And what has it gotten them? Like I said, the Rays, luckily, and like I said, they've had similar things. They've had good bullpens. They had good-ish starting pitching. Obviously, Tanaka wasn't that good this year. But at least, again, the Rays have 3 guys. The Yankees had 1 and then 2 this year, but then really only 1 because, like I said, Tanaka wasn't that great. But like I said, they've had the good bullpens and things like that, but it just hasn't mattered. Luckily, the Rays were able to fix that. But again, that's part of the reason why they almost lost to the Astros. Was because their offense is just, or it has been a Rosarena or a bust pretty much. Like he's hitting like over 300 and stuff in the playoffs, great. Like everyone else was like I think they said was hitting, I think for the playoffs, good has been for the last year, but for the playoffs hitting like under 200. Like every other non Rosarena Ray that's been in the lineup. Like I said, that's not sustainable. You can't count on one guy to win you a series. I mean, maybe you can. But it's going to be very difficult. Let me just put it that way. It's very difficult to count on just one guy to win you a series. So, see if anybody's able to step up for the Rays and get some hits. Because they had 6, which isn't like that bad. But through the first 5 innings, they had literally 1 on the Kiermaier home run. So, most of their hits came in that 7th inning. Outside of that, they really didn't do a whole lot in terms of the hits. So, you're going to need to try to figure some things out. Find ways to manufacture runs without the home runs. Because that's what they're going to count on. It could be a short series. Obviously the Dodgers won already, but if I were going to pick, I'd probably go like 5 just because I don't trust that Rays lineup. But like I said, if Rosarena is now going to be not hitting 2, like he was 0 for 3 with a walk today. So if he's not going to be getting on base like that, then this could be a sweep, honestly. If the Dodgers starting pitching holds, but again, we'll see. So game 2, Wednesday night, should be an interesting one. Speaking of interesting, Commissioner Rob Manfred had some comments about the different things he tried to implement this season with different tweaks with the expanded playoffs and like the runner on second thing during extra innings, things like that. And he talked about the possibility of them staying in long term or if they're going to be like a 1-season thing. So we will discuss his comments on that right after the break. Stay right there.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines. They got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
And we're back here again on the GSMC Sports Podcast, presented by GSMC Podcast Network. So Rob Manfred, ahead of the World Series, I guess he had like a press conference, or we were just here talking to reporters or whatever. So ahead of the World Series, which will help put a bow on this pandemic shortened season that was always going to happen, but like almost kind of didn't happen, but then eventually happened. And outside of a few hiccups, has gone on pretty smooth, you could argue. And the playoffs, in my opinion, have been very good, very entertaining. I mean, you have multiple game 7s, a game 5 or 2. Obviously, those wild card rounds were very entertaining. So And again, Manfred had his issues throughout the year, but all in all, not that bad. In my own opinion. I am not the opinion of everyone, but just in my opinion, not that bad. So, as I was saying, Rob Manfred said that he hopes to keep 2 of this year's innovations from, like, again, the few different things they added this season to try to, I guess, make the game more intriguing or exciting or more watchable, whatever you want to call it. And those are expanded playoffs and starting extra innings with a runner on second base. People were wildly unenthusiastic about the changes, and then when they saw them in action, they were much more positive. Manfred said Tuesday during an interview. Okay, so it was during an interview with the Associated Press. Manfred said the 30 teams combined for $3 billion in operating losses because of the coronavirus pandemic, which obviously can cause the season to be shortened and all that fun stuff. But also allowed for the teams to agree to expand the playoffs from 10 to 16. Even before the pandemic, Manfred advocated future expansion of the playoffs to 14 teams. I like the idea of, and I'm choosing my words carefully here, an expanded playoff format, Manfred said. I don't think we should do 16 like we did this year. I think we do have to be cognizant of making sure that we preserve the importance of the regular season, which is fair. But I think something beyond the 10 teams, the 10 that we were at, would be a good change. With the added runner rule, the longest of 68 games of 10 innings or longer were a pair of 13-inning contests, according to the Elias Sports Bureau. I think the players like it. It depends on who you ask. I don't think the pitchers loved it. I think it's really good from a safety and health perspective that keeps us from putting players in situations where they're out there too long or in positions they're not used to playing. Union head Tony Clark said it was too soon to commit to these type of changes for 2021. The sports labor contract runs through 2021. The union's agreement is needed to alter the 2021 structure. So again, we'll have to put a little, put a little bit of a pause on if these things are actually going to go through. But again, so far, this is just what Manfred wants, which everyone probably won't agree with. We made a number of one-year changes this season under unique circumstances. Clark wrote in an email to the AP, "We are gathering feedback from players and will bring that to the league and at the appropriate time, Obviously, protecting health and safety will remain among several important considerations as those talks unfold. Manfred is concerned about whether fans will be allowed to attend games next season, which seems fair. We understand what happens with fans going to... We understand what happens with fans is going to be a product of what happens with the virus, what decisions public health authorities make in terms of mass gatherings. It is a huge issue for us in terms of economics of the game, because obviously they get a lot of gate revenue. The losses that I referred to earlier were basically in stone when we started the season, because we knew about 40% of our revenue was gate related, and we knew we weren't going to have it. He said the club's done a good job locally, and we've tried to do a good job centrally. And so I guess we'll have to see how everything kind of plays out, which again is kind of fair. Though I think a lot of it, at least for the next year, next year as in 2021, from a fan standpoint, will be kind of what we're seeing in some of these, even kind of what we're seeing a little bit at the World Series or at these other like NFL games, things like that, where you're going to have like a limited capacity, and you're going to have like them spread out like blocks of 4, groups of 4, and then they're going to be like a slot here, and like a slot over there, and like a split, and then just kind of split them up. And I think at the World Series, I think I saw something where they like zip tie the seats that aren't going to be used, just so that no one can sit in them. And obviously, people patrolling, make sure everybody has their masks on and stuff. Which, I don't know how hard they're policing that kind of thing. But again, at least if you're spread out, like that kind of helps. And again, it's easier for a sport like baseball because it's played in the spring/summer. And they're also not going to like have to worry about pushing the season back. Like the NBA, their season is going to start whenever it starts, and that's going to be a whole big thing. Plus, they're going to be inside, so I don't know how you're going to want to do with that because, again, indoors, if the ventilation isn't then I'm not a doctor, but from things I've read and things I've seen, indoors seems to be worse than outdoors for the virus, just because it seems to be airborne in some capacity. So again, indoor where there's what's kind of enclosed and the ventilation may not be up to par, could be a bigger problem than like outdoors, which is why baseball shouldn't be a big issue, because most of they think they only have like a couple domes, and most of them have like retractable roofs or whatever, so that should be a big deal. And plus, like, it's not going to be cold outside. like I said, it'd be different if you're talking about like in January, February when the NBA is going to pick up, you have to play outside. Like that would be nearly impossible because like it's going to be too cold in most places to play outdoors. So I said it'd be interesting to see kind of how they do things, but I do believe that in general they're just probably just do a limited capacity. Manfred was pleased with the rule he pushed for forcing pitchers to face a minimum of 3 batters or to finish the half inning. I like that as well. There's nothing about what happened this year that has changed, not only in my mind but anybody's mind anybody in the game's mind about it, and I think that's here to stay. He would not say whether he favors keeping the expansion of the designated hitter to the National League, citing deciding the need to bargain on the topic with the players' union. The expansion of active rosters from 26 to 28 was specific to the stop of spring training in March and resumption in the summer. Also, he did not draw any conclusions about the average time of the 9-inning games. It increased to about 3 hours and 7 minutes as opposed to 3 hours and 5 minutes and 35 seconds from last year. And calls likely tied to expanded rosters and increased pitching changes, which, I mean, is fair. He also thought it was difficult to analyze whether the drop in Major League batting average to 245 as low as 1968 was cynical or an anomaly. Though, in fairness, when you only have 60 games, like you don't really have time for things to even out. Like guys that got off to rough starts, you didn't have time for them to raise their average. And guys that got off to hot starts, you didn't have time for them to lower their average for it to kind of like balance out a little bit. So I think that's, in terms of that I would imagine that's a part of it, in my opinion. But just, again, I want to touch on some of the changes and his opinion on them and whether I think they should be here to stay or go. I like the pitching change rule, the 3 minimum batters or have them finish the half inning. Because, again, just having a guy come in to face one batter, it was always just kind of like, I mean, it made sense because like strategy, but I'm like, all right, come on, like that's like, what are we doing here? We're wasting too much time, especially come playoff time where teams and coaches are doing a lot of odd things with their bullpens, and they're not keeping to. I mean, I don't say they're not keeping to their normal plan for the regular season because teams like the Rays or whatever, they just use it. They use people when they want to use them, or if you have a bullpen like that, you can use people whenever. But like I said, to have a guy just like have a lefty come in and get one lefty batter out, like things like that. I thought it was like good, and I thought it made it even more strategic, or you have to be even more strategic with who you brought in because you knew they were going to have to face multiple batters or get out of the inning. So like I said, if you bring a guy in, like if you want to do the one batter thing, all right, then maybe you'd have to bring him in with 2 outs, but you have to make sure that the other guy that you brought in already has already finished. Like you couldn't bring in like multiple pitchers in the same inning unless they faced the 3 batter minimum kind of thing. So it's like, all right, if you want to have this guy start, but you want to have this guy pitch to, if you want to have a certain guy pitch to a certain batter, like you either have to start him in the inning and hope that maybe he gets to him and gets him out, or he doesn't even have to reach it. So that's even better. Or you have to be smart about who you bring in to start that inning, because say he's the 4th or 5th batter, you're like, all right, I'd like this matchup against this pitcher against this guy, and he's like the 4th or 5th batter. Like now, are you going to risk having another guy come that may be a little tired, or maybe it's the 2nd or 3rd inning of work? Are you going to risk that in order to preserve this specific matchup, even though the specific matchup might be great, but he might overall be a better reliever? So, like I said, I like that change person. Just there's still a lot of there's still a decent amount of pitching changes, but it's like the one batter thing was kind of like annoying to me. But again, I'm not a baseball purist, so there is that. The DH thing, I think they should keep it. I don't really see the point of not having the DH in the National League at this point. Again, you have to talk with the players' union about that, but I think most teams would like that because again, you get a better hitter in your lineup all the time. Again, having pitchers hit can be entertaining when they're actually good, but there's so few good hitting pitchers, in my opinion, in the league that I was like, what's the point? Now, again, there brings more strategy into the game, things like that. But I like the idea of the DH because, again, it's just I want to see more offense. And that's the way to get more offense into the game, especially now so with so many teams having a lot of guys that can hit, or a higher number of guys that can hit home runs and things like that. Like, why not have more guys in the lineup? Like, again, I would say it just because my dad's a Met fan, so I know this. But, like, say the Mets, for example, like, all right, they need to figure out what to do with Dom Smith. Or they need to figure out what to do because, again, he's a better first baseman than Pete Alonso, though obviously Pete had a down year this year or whatever. But, again, he's too good of a hitter to not have in your lineup all the time. So, because I think he hit over like 300 this year. It's like, are you going to put him out in the outfield that he doesn't really play or he's not comfortable? Or same thing we do with like Jeff McNeil, because it's like, all right, like we want to have his bat in, but it's like he's not a left fielder either, so he needs to play second base. But then it's like Robinson no hit really well, so like, what do we do with him? And so it's like, do we want to, like I said, just having a DH would help these teams kind of be able to get as many good bats in the lineup as they could. And like I said, in a sport that wants to draw a younger audience and like a new generation of fans, offense and home runs and things of that and things of that nature will help with that, in my opinion. So why not add the DH again? I don't really see the downside to it again outside of the baseball purist kind of guys, but for outside of those guys, like I don't see the downside of being like, yeah, let's keep the DH in the National League. But again, I'm not a purist. That's just me. So what was the other one? The runner on second base thing. That's interesting that he's thinking about keeping that one, because I know like that's good if you have a good bullpen. Like, hey, all right, maybe we could, or you have a good offense to be like, hey, if we give up 1 or 2 runs in this extra innings, like we could still come back in and get it, because we know that we can trust our guys to get a runner in from second with nobody out. But if your bullpen's not that great, now you already have a guy. So you already have a guy on second base. So now you're talking about, instead of giving up maybe 1 run, if the slate is blank, then now you're talking about having to give up, maybe potentially giving up 2-3 runs in an inning, and that's gonna mess with people's ERAs and things like that. So I don't know. I didn't really love that. I understood in terms of like times, like, all right, we need to get this wrapped up. So there is that. I understand. And I think, like I said, I thought they said I was reading this off ESPN, that only like 2 games went like 13 innings or so. Right? I forget if it was 13 games or 13 innings or more or whatever. So like, again, the games, we didn't have like 19, 20 inning games, which doesn't happen that often anyway. But again, it's just that like the games are over a lot quicker, because like, hey, usually a team can find a way to score, or at least 1 run with a guy on second and nobody out. Like most teams can do that. So it speeds up the pace of the game. So I get that aspect of it, but I just thought it was weird. I don't really like it, personally. Maybe that's just me. And with expanded playoffs, I don't know, because with the 14, I'm curious to see how they would do it. Because then what would you just give each division? No, because hold on, I'm trying to think. So if you have 7, so 14 would be 7 teams. So 7 teams each. So yeah, I'm curious to see how you would. So would it be? I guess it would kind of be like the NFL, where like just the first place team gets a bye. Which, I mean, that's not bad. Like I said, you want to keep the integrity of the regular season in place, because even though the Astros almost made it to the World Series, like they were 29-31, they were 2 games under 500. That's not normally that's not what gets you into the playoffs. So again, I might change it up to where the seeding, obviously if you win your division, you make it in, but you don't have to be in second place to like those next spots, if that makes sense. So you just go after, all right, you get to 3 division winners, cool, and then like everything else is based by record. So like I say, you don't have to get the Astros in or somebody like that. You don't have to force a team in just so they came in second place in a division that might be down this year, if that makes sense. So you can just rank it or just do it, like I said, like football does, where it's like, all right, you have the 4 division winners, and then like everything else is based on like tiebreakers or whatever. It's not based on like, oh, if this person's in second place or third place or whatever. But again, that's just my opinion. And like I said, that'll help keep the integrity, help keep teams, because like I said, just the first place team gets that bye. Then are you going to force the second place team, maybe even the third place team, depending on how many games back they are, to keep playing through September, even if they have the division already pretty much sealed by like early to mid September? Like you still have to not force them to like go too hard, but you can't, like, they're not just going to be giving away games that could potentially help other teams get into the regular or get into the postseason down the stretch. They're playing teams that like, oh, we might be resting a guy, we might be going on a bullpen day or different things like that. We might play some younger guy, just get him some playing time, and things like that. Like again, you keep the integrity if there's a bye on the line. So like I said, having everybody play, like 16 is probably too much, but if you do the 14 and you just have, like, again, you have, instead of having a wild card game, you have the wild card round like you did this year, but instead of, like I said, 4 series, it's just 3. I think that could work. Like I said, I wasn't mad about the extra game. I think most teams probably weren't mad about it, just because, again, it's just, in baseball, one game, like, so many, like, baseball's so random that one game while again it provides for a lot of intrigue and makes it very exciting and entertaining to watch as a fan, I imagine it's very, very stressful as a player. So then at least you have 3 games. All right, you guys, over the course of 3 games, maybe you'll figure some things out and you'll be able to work some things. Like I said, that's supposed to 1 game. If your pitcher doesn't have it that day or your lineup is struggling, you had a great season, but that's it. So like I said, at least the 3-game series gives you time to all right, over the course of 3 games, we have a shot. 1 game, you just have a bad game and it's over. At least for 3 games, you have a shot to get things right. So, like I said, I think expanded playoffs could work. I hope they stick with that. DH, I hope they stick with that. The run on second, don't love, but it sounds like Manfred wants it, so we'll have to see if that sticks. And then what was the other one? And then, like I said, the pitching. The 3-batter minimum, or they got to finish out there, or they have to finish the inning or whatever. I didn't see that as a big issue, personally. I don't think it changed the course of the game or anything drastically. So I don't see that as being a bad thing. The only one I don't agree with and wouldn't want to see is the run on second base. I'm just play a normal game. You don't have to overtime. Obviously in college is different, but overtime in the pros is very similar, even though I think the NHL one, they changed it up a little bit. But in the NFL, it's still the same. Obviously, the sudden death nature of the touchdown, but it's not you're playing you're not your teams, there's no kickoff, you start at the 50-yard line. Or no, you just play like a normal game. So I just think you should play it like a normal inning. Yeah, if it goes along, it goes along, such as these things happen. It doesn't happen that often where games go 14, 15, 16 innings, things like that. But I'm just saying, just to keep the integrity of the game, I would. But again, I'm not the commissioner, but I would take away that rule. That's really the only one that I would do away with for the 1-year rule changes. But again, we'll see what kind of happens after this season. So, when we come back here, we will discuss another Monday night doubleheader. They won't, but I wouldn't be mad if they kept this going as well. I do enjoy the doubleheader games, though obviously 5 o'clock's a little bit early for a lot of people. But for me, on the East Coast, not so bad. I don't mind. So, but regardless, there were 2 games, Chiefs, Bills, Cardinals, Cowboys. We will talk about them right after the break. Stay right there.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
We are back here again on the GSMC Sports Podcast presented by GSMC Podcast Network. So we will start in this one with the Chiefs. We'll start Chiefs Bills for this one. And we'll get to, like I said, the Cowboys and the Cardinals later. But at least for the last couple weeks, not going to go too hard on this because I don't consider myself a Josh Allen hater. But over the last 2 weeks, it is clear that he has taken a step back from where he was to start the season. Granted, and some people will give this reason. I don't know if they call things excuses. Some things are excuses. But I will give this reason for why he may have played poorly. And some of it may have been the inclement weather. It was raining, though we have Mahomes on the other side, who is 21-26 and 225 with 2 touchdowns in that same weather. Does kind of hurt the argument a wee bit. But again, Josh Allen is not Patrick Mahomes. that goes without saying. But again, he wasn't really that great. He had more inaccurate passes than he normally has. Again, he's not the most accurate guy, but he had been more accurate over the first 4 weeks. And now, like I said, he's taken a little bit of a step back in the past 2 against the Titans and the Chiefs, 2 of the better teams in the AFC. So again, it's not the end of the world. And no, they did beat the Raiders, who beat the Chiefs. So again, they're not, and even they beat the Dolphins, who have now, they're 3-3. Like, they're not a terrible team, like many people thought they were at the time. Though, I mean, the Dolphins, the Dolphins, they smoked the Niners. They were in a competitive game with the Bills. They were in a competitive game with the Seahawks. So he's played just like completely trash teams. Though, he is going to play the Jets next, so that is going to help get the confidence back up, because everybody gets that's the confidence boost game. Because when you play the Jets, you're like, oh, we may not be feeling good, this may not be working, that may not be working, but we'll get it right against the Jets. No offense to the Jets and just fans out there, but that's kind of how I imagine most teams feel about them heading in. But yeah, long story short, like I said, he wasn't that special, and that defense for the Bills was not that special, and I think that may be the biggest takeaway through the first 6 weeks of the season for me with this Bills team, is that defense isn't what we thought it was going to be heading into the season. And that could very well be a problem. Because obviously we know what Josh Allen is. Obviously he's a better version of that now. But generally speaking, he's a very big, mobile quarterback with a very strong arm who's not that accurate, but is improving on his accuracy and is improving on his decision making. But still, every once in a while, he throws a pass, and you're just like, why would you throw that? Or he makes a decision, and you're like, what are you doing? Again, he was making less of those in the wins. Now some of those maybe starting to catch up with him a little bit in the losses. But, like I said, they were supposed to have a very good defense. And they kind of don't right now. Like, they got, Clyde Edwards-Helaire alone ran for 161 against them. They gave up 245 yards on the ground in a game where it's raining, so the team's probably going to want to run if they can. That's not good. They ran the ball 46 times. The Chiefs. This is not the Raiders. This is not even like years ago, like the Cowboys. Like, this is not a team that's known. Again, they have a good offensive line and good play calls and obviously good running backs and things or a good running back. Obviously, we'll see what happens once they get Le'Veon Bell added to the mix. But yeah, it's not a bad running team by any stretch. But they're not this good. Like, they're not this good. They're not run the ball 46 times for 245 yards and a 5.3 yards per carry good. Like that, no, that's not what they are. But like I said, the Bills just haven't been that special on defense. And that's what they're supposed to be. Like you said, you see the Steelers. Like, their defense looks special. That like the pass rush is elite. They're getting turnovers. They are converting those turnovers into points sometimes. Like, that's like a great defense. The Ravens, They don't have like a TJ Watt or a Bud Dupree, which is a part of the problem. Is why they need to blitz so much. Because they just don't. I mean, Matthew Judon, like he's fine, and Calais Campbell is obviously pretty good, but they don't have like that dominant one-on-one pass rusher. So again, they have to get a little bit more creative, and it works. Though again, they did let their foot a little bit off the gas against the Eagles in the last game. But generally speaking, like they have a good defense. Like there are a few good defenses out there, not a lot. But there are a few good or very good. Great even defenses out there. You can maybe even throw the Chiefs in there. Like, their defense has looked fairly solid throughout the year outside of the Raiders game. But again, like, the Bills are supposed to be in that same category with like, oh, they're one of the better defenses, one of the best defenses in the league. Like, they're supposed to be up there. They were very good last year. I think I know they lost like a couple guys, but I didn't think it was going to be like a dramatic drop off. And now, like I said, they can't. Their defense got run on. Couldn't contain Travis Kelce, which again should be priority number one. Didn't really get a whole lot of pressure on Mahomes. Only had 5 quarterback hits all game, 0 sacks. It's like I said, it's just that like I think that's my biggest worry with the Bills right now. It was like, is that defense going to get right? Because again, you always knew that like Josh Allen, he's not Russell Wilson, he's not Aaron Rodgers, he's not Patrick Mahomes. Like, he's not one of those type of quarterbacks, and that's fine. He doesn't have to be for them to be successful. Like he wasn't last year. They got to the playoffs. He just needs to be like a good quarterback. Like, okay, like as long as he's not making too many mistakes and not losing them the game like that, like they'll be fine. Similar thing. I'm not comparing him to Nick Foles, but that's what Nick Foles, like the Bears, another team that has good defense. That's what the Bears need. Like, they just need Nick Foles not to screw things up, which is why they went away from him, went away from Mitch and went to him, because Mitch can sometimes screw things up. Like, Nick Foles, generally speaking, isn't going to lose you the game. He may not always win you the game, but he's not going to lose you the game. And like I said, that's what that defense needs. They just need a quarterback that's not going to actively lose them the game. Like I said, Josh Allen has been better about that. Again, he still makes some interesting decisions, but he's been better, but now the defense isn't there to back him up. So now he's playing better. All right, cool. But then where's the defense? Where's my support? Like we can't have a game where you get run on for 250. Damn near. Like that can't happen. That can't happen. Especially coming off of the last week where it was like, all right, like we got beat by the Titans. All right, okay, cool. And I was like I said, the Titans maybe one of the 5 or 6 best teams in the NFL right now. Again, depending on how you feel about different teams. But it's like, all right, okay, cool. That's fine. It was a bad game for us. Cool. We'll wash it off. But then this game wasn't that good either. And again, if not for the inclement weather, maybe Mahomes and them throw for more yards. Like, they just didn't have to throw because they could run whenever they wanted for big chunks whenever they wanted. So, and that's my biggest concern with the Bills. Luckily, the division's not that great. Like I said, they get the Jets next week. Then they get the Patriots, who just lost to Drew Lock, who was actively trying to lose the game for the Broncos. Then for the Seahawks, that'll be an interesting one. The Cardinals, we'll see about that one because I don't really know how good or bad they are. They also play the Steelers in the second half of the season. They play the Niners in the second half of the season, see how healthy they are there. So they got still some decent tests. But it's one of those things where you want to see them compete against the better teams in the conference. Like, that's the same issue people are having with the Browns, is that, like, oh, like, they're beating quote unquote bad teams or average teams, but then when they face good teams, they're getting smoked. And obviously they didn't get smoked in this game, but the Chiefs had a firm hold on the game from basically start to finish. Obviously the fumble that was almost a fumble, but was overturned because he was down, could have been damaging for the Chiefs. It was Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I forget, the thing was late. I'm trying to remember when it was in the fourth. Was it here? Yeah, it was in the fourth with like 5 minutes left. They ended up kicking a field goal on this drive, so it didn't end up mattering. And also because he was down, so it didn't end up mattering. But this was the 1st and 10 from 35 that he fumbled, and they recovered at 31. So now they're down 6. All right, like maybe that game goes differently. Maybe things go differently. If that fumble counts, if the ball starts moving a half a second earlier. But it didn't, so you know, then there's no ifs, ands, or buts in this scenario. But that wasn't supposed to happen like that. But you know, however, they weren't able to, like, even after that, they weren't able to get a stop. And that's the biggest, probably the biggest issue there, is that they just weren't able to stop them, because you had chances. If you stopped them, maybe you force them to punt. Now you're down 6, and you still have a chance to go out and win the game. But now, like, you come in down 9. Let them bleed 4 minutes, 30 seconds off the clock. Then 2 plays in, he throws an interception, and then the game's over. So, like I said, the Bills, hopefully they can get back on track, which they should be able to do against the Jets. To at least they get them feeling better. It's not gonna be an impressive win. No one's gonna be like, oh yeah, the Bills are back. Like, no, even if Josh Allen plays well, no one's gonna be like, oh yeah, Josh Allen's back. Like, it's the Jets. No one's gonna say that. But again, you want to get something going after a 2-game losing streak where you started the season 4-0. So, we'll see if they're able to do that next week. And now moving on to the Cowboys and the Cardinals. So yeah, I imagine Dak is a less petty person than I am, and is not going to take solace or be happy in the fact that the Cowboys looked so terrible yesterday without him. But I think his agent will. Like, if there was any, and obviously we talked about, like, Dalton, could he be the next Ryan Tannehill? Like, maybe, have the weapons there. But without offensive line, he's going to have, well, also he's not that good. But with that offensive line, he's got no shot. Like, with a good offensive line, maybe. And again, we'll see what Ryan Tannehill looks like. So now Taylor Lewan's, I think, towards ACL, so he's done for the year. Left tackle. So, see how much that hurts him. But with that offensive line, it doesn't matter what the weapons look like. If you don't got time to block, you don't got time to throw, you're not good at evading the rush, things like that, it's not really going to matter. And they got beat the Cowboys did by 28 in a game where the Cardinals, well, mainly Kyler Murray, did not even play that well. Like, they scored 38 points. Cool, but Kyler Murray was 9 of 24. Had 2 touchdowns, obviously. The one came on the long, what was it, 80? Yeah, the 80-yard pass to Christian Kirk. I'm pretty sure it was on a double move on Worley, and he just got him, and then he made a connection. But like Kyler Murray, I think he just came out a little too amped up, being back in Texas, being back in a stadium where he was undefeated. I think he'd won 3 state championships and a Big 12 championship, if I remember correctly. So again, he normally used to playing well. His first NFL game back in Dallas, I'm pretty sure. So again, he's probably a little amped up. He was definitely a little erratic with that accuracy to start the game. But did it matter? No, because the Cowboys aren't good, and they continue to turn the ball over, mainly Zeke. And I don't know if that's him putting too much pressure on himself, him getting in his own head, or him trying to keep pace, because again, Dak was looking good, the receivers were looking good, CeeDee Lamb, Gallup, and Cooper, to a degree. Like, all right, maybe he's feeling like, all right, well, now I need to show people that I'm still good. And now he's pressing too much. And then obviously in this game, he knows that, like, hey, this may be my team now because obviously Dak's gone. And Andy Dalton's going to need some help. And then he fumbled twice. Both fumbles led to points, which is obviously the worst part of it. Because up until that first fumble, the defense had been playing kind of decently. Then they fumbled back-to-back drive. Next thing you know, it's 14-0. Then they punt, and then now it's 21-0, 21-3, heading into the half. And a game that was kind of close in the first quarter is now a blowout. And then they come out after half. Andy Dalton throws a pick, though. I mean, that was a tough one because it was probably, or very clearly looked like pass interference. They didn't call it, so it's only legal if you get caught. And then they got the pick. They score a touchdown there. So on top of the fact that they turned the ball over too much, they continue to allow teams to score after they turn the ball over, which, again, not going to blame the defense for that necessarily, but good defenses can weather the storm there. So their first 3 turnovers, they scored touchdowns, the Cardinals did, immediately after every one of those drives. And then even the Dalton interception was actually his fault. Is they were able to get a field goal. Sorry, that's not that bad. But still, you can't win games when you turn the ball over 4 times. And on 3 of those 4 turnovers, you subsequently give up touchdowns. Like, you're not going to win any games. You're not going to win many games, turn the ball over 4 times anyway. But you're definitely not going to win any games if you can't limit the other team to field goals. Or at least some touchdowns. Like, alright, I'm not expecting you to not give up any points after turnovers, things like that. Like, sometimes it's in a bad spot. And you're out of luck due to field position, things like that. But again, if you just, after every turnover, like, I think they have like the worst, after turnover differential. Like, in terms of, like, the amount of score they give up after turnovers through the first 6 games, like, it's historically bad. So, that's a problem. If you're going to be turning the ball over as much as they are, and again, you hope Zeke cleans things up, I don't know about Andy Dalton, because, again, he's not supposed to be the starter. So, I expect him to continue to throw picks. But again, your defense has to help you out to a degree. But the defense is historically bad, right now. So, what do you expect them to do? They stink. They're not good. It is what it is. So yeah. And like I said, I didn't even talk that much about the Cardinals just because the Cardinals didn't really, the defense played well. I'm not saying they didn't play that well. The defense played well. Kenyon Drake obviously had a good day, though that was aided a lot by that last touchdown score. What was it, like 69 yards? Yeah. So that helped his stats out a wee bit. But even before that, you take that, I said like over 90 yards and like 19 carries, something like that, and a touchdown. Kyler Murray looked good and running the ball, which he always does because he's faster than just about everybody on the field. A couple times they tried Jalen Smith with the spy. He's in great position. Just that, like, if I'm faster than you, I'm going to beat you to the outside. It doesn't matter if you're spying me or not. So it was a tough spot for them. And like I said, the defense, they forced 4 turnovers, which was great. They got 3 sacks, 7 tackles for loss, 8 quarterback hits. So, again, it was aided by the fact that their offensive line, especially when Zach Martin went out, was literally all backups. But again, that's not, they might be the worst, but again, you have teams like the Eagles and other teams that are dealing with a lot of injuries in general. And even up on front of that offensive line that don't look that bad. Granted, the Eagles did give up a lot of sacks last game to the Ravens, so, it is what it is. But yeah, that's the thing, is that, like, Tyrone Smith's not coming back, Leo Collins isn't coming back, Travis Frederick, who retired, isn't coming back. Don't know how many games Joe Looney will be out. Zach Martin, we'll see what's up with him. how much time he'll miss. So there's certain things that I'm like, they're not fixable. Like the offensive line play, all right, you maybe hope they improve with more reps and things like that, but if they're not good, they're not good. Like and I don't know where you're going to go out and find. Like this is not just like a surplus of offensive tackles just growing on trees for when guys get hurt. That's just, that there aren't a lot of them out there. And again, maybe the trade deadline, they'll try to find something, but it's not going to be that simple to replace 2 Pro Bowl caliber tackles in the middle of the season. Like, it's just not going to happen. Same thing on the defensive side. Like, their secondary, not good. Their linebackers, I think Van Der Esch ended up getting hurt again last game, and then Jalen Smith hasn't been what he was supposed to be since he got paid. So that, I don't know where you go for that help there. Defensive line. Again, Kyler Murray's a tough guy to sack, so I'm not going to get too mad at them for not having any sacks. But again, DeMarcus Lawrence hasn't really done a whole lot this year. Who else? Everson Griffin hasn't really done a whole lot this year. Alan Smith has had some decent games, but still not a whole lot. I think that, they had 1 sack from Anthony Brown. It's like I said, he's a corner. Their defensive line was supposed to be one of the better parts of their defense, and they haven't shown up either. And again, they're getting run on. So like it's like what do you hang your hat on if you're the Cowboys right now? And I think that was the biggest talking point, like NFL Live, this type of show, is like, what do the Cowboys hang their hat on, or who do they hang their hat on? Because at least they could hang it on like Dak in the passing game. But now that Andy Dalton's in there, and he's clearly not Dak, what do you hang your hat on? If Zeke's going to keep fumbling, like the offensive line's going to be injured, the receivers are still going to be receivers, but they can't get the ball. What are you going to do? The defense isn't great. What is it like? All right, this is what we can feel confidently about heading forward for the Cowboys. What is that? And again, that doesn't mean their season's done. The NFC East is terrible. They very well could still win the division, just because again it's that bad. But again, all right, you win the division, like you're just going to get beat by like the Bears or the Packers or like the Saints or the Bucks. Like one of those type of teams, or Rams. Like you're going to probably lose. At some point, like you're probably gonna lose, and lose pretty good in the first round of the playoffs. So it's like, all right, you made the playoffs, but hey, it is what it is. Like no one's gonna be all gung ho about winning the NFC East this year, depending on how the season ends for these teams. Like if the Eagles get healthy and turn it around, or the Giants get hot, like all right, maybe they feel better. But like if someone backs into the division at like with 6 or 7 wins, like no one's gonna feel like happy about it. You're gonna be happy that you won, you get that playoff game, but you're not gonna be like, yeah, we're a good team. Like, no one's going to be feeling that way. So like I said, right now, I don't know what the Cowboys hang their hat on. And I don't know what they're hanging their hat on going forward. And that's their biggest dilemma right now is like, what do they do well? Because it used to be at least pass the ball. But now with Andy Dalton in there and showing that he is clearly not Dak, not even Ryan Tannehill, then now they don't even do that as well. So what do they do well? What is one thing they do well? I don't know. So that's going to be their big dilemma. But yeah, so we'll see. We'll see what happens. See if the Bills can figure some things out. I think Dallas plays Washington this week, so that should be a win. But again, who knows? Because the Cowboys aren't that good. We can't just assume these things. They should be Washington. Washington's going to be starting Kyle Allen, I would expect. He's not that good. But hey, who knows? They almost lost the Giants last week. The Giants aren't that good. But they'll beat Washington, and they could beat the Eagles this week. Like, again, the NFC East is so bad, like, you don't know who's going to win because all these teams are equal levels of bad. You're just like, ugh. That's how you feel. It's like, yeah. I don't know. We'll see. After this next break, there was actually a report that came out about the Cowboys and their coaching staff and how the players feel about their coaching staff. And through only 6 games, which is how you know it's bad. So we'll talk about that. And also, apparently it's Tua time down there in Miami. So we'll talk about that, what I think is the right decision. I'm not going to talk about how I think it's going to go because I haven't seen Tua play football, a whole game of football. So he came in a little bit against the Jets, but haven't seen him play a full game since his Alabama days. So I don't know. But again, seeing Justin Herbert play well and Joe Burrow play well, maybe he shouldn't be too bad. And like I said, we'll discuss all that right after the break. Stay right there.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red-hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's gsmcpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit gsmcpodcast.com for more info.
With the Cowboys, Jane Slater, she is a reporter, NFL reporter. She reports on the Cowboys, obviously. She tweeted this out earlier today. Cowboys players initially bought into keeping things internal. Now, as they sit at 2-4, the discontent is leaking out on the coaching staff. Totally unprepared. They don't teach. They don't have any sense of adjusting on the fly. They just aren't good at their jobs. And then she obviously, when I was talking about on NFL Network, and it made the rounds on Twitter and different places earlier today, or earlier Tuesday, Wednesday when you guys will be hearing this, but earlier Tuesday. But, yeah, this is not great. Normally these kind of things, like, all right, you may hear this after like a season, or after like a bad season, maybe a couple seasons in, something like that. Like, normally you don't hear 6 weeks into the year that teams or that players are already trashing their new coaching staff. But again, we'll kind of talk about that aspect of it. But again, it does kind of lead me into the discussion of like, what is different? Like, you look at the Cowboys, objectively speaking, what is different from Mike McCarthy this year and Jason Garrett last year? Like, what is different about the team? What is different about the offense? About the defense? What is different? I'll wait. Like, please let me know. Well, one difference I can tell you is obviously defense is a lot worse. But outside of that, what is the difference? Because I don't know if there is one. And I think that's the biggest problem is, as I kind of said before, like, what are they hanging their hat on? Like, what is their identity as a team? Like, what are they supposed to be? What do they want to be? What are they trying to do, both offensively and defensively, that's going to be different from Jason Garrett to Mike McCarthy? Because as of right now, it seems like a team that underachieved last year and is now underachieving this year for different reasons. Obviously, some of it injury, but even when people were healthy earlier in the season, they were still 1-2, 1-3, whatever you want to say. Like I said, they should have been 0-4. Like, they should have lost the Falcons. Like, again, they was not like they were playing great before all the injuries kicked in. Now, obviously, they had a lot of injuries on the line, and Van Rich got hurt first game, and then obviously Dak is going to miss the season. Things like that. So again, injuries have piled up, especially recently. But when they were relatively healthy earlier in the season, they still weren't that good. They just had a very good offense. Like, that was it. And that's what they had last year. They had a very good offense. So again, what is different? And I think that's kind of the things that a lot of these players, like, none of these guys have ties to Mike McCarthy or ties to Mike Nolan or this coaching staff. Obviously, some of them have ties to Kellen Moore and things like that because they were on the offense from last year, and it's still, like I said, very good this year. But they have no ties to them. So again, you let Jason Garrett go, which it was time to let Jason Garrett go. But you let Jason Garrett go. What is the difference with this team? Like, what is Mike McCarthy bringing? What did he add? What is new? What is different? Because I don't know. The offense looks fairly similar. Still is explosive, but fairly similar. The defense is obviously worse. So that's a problem. But again, Mike McCarthy is not the defense coordinator, but he's also not the offensive coordinator. Like, he's not calling the play caller either. So again, they're basically just running the Kellen Moore offense, just with Jason Garrett leading the meetings and coming up with game plans and talking to the team, things like that, instead of Mike McCarthy talking to them instead of Jason Garrett. Like, that's really the only difference. And obviously, they have a new defensive coordinator. But again, I don't know what's different. So again, this is bad. Like, you can't lose the locker room 6 games in to your new tenure with the team. Like that can't happen. Obviously, it's happening, so there's that. But like, that can't happen. Like, you can't lose a locker room that fast, especially in a division that is very winnable. The division is not good this year. Like, it is very bad. Like, the Cowboys, again, maybe not with the injuries, but at the end of the season, they were probably the favorites to win the division in most people's eyes. Because they had Dak in the offense and different things, and then everyone was like, "Oh yeah, Mike McCarthy, like, he'll be great." Even though I was a little, I mean, I'm not gonna say I thought they were gonna be this bad, but I was like, I mean, the brother had Aaron Rodgers and went to one Super Bowl, like, and brother kind of got ran out of the league, they ran out of town by Aaron Rodgers, and obviously when they let him go, Matt LaFleur, he's coming and they look great. They won the NFC Championship game last year, and obviously before the Bucs game, their offense looked very good. But again, also, I knew Mike McCarthy was going to be a little shaky when he said that he lied about watching every play because he wanted the job. And I was like, bro, that's what regular people do to get work. Like everybody embellishes on their resume, or exaggerates. I get it, or exaggerates in an interview. Like, I get it. Everybody wants to, like, you want a job, you want to make money. Cool. But again, to then go and admit that in the first press conference, like, yeah, I lied to Jerry about how much work I did. I just really wanted the job. I'm like, oh, I would have been, I mean, obviously they laughed it off and things, but I would have, if I'm Jerry Jones, I would have had to talk with Steven like, should we fire this dude right now? Because clearly you think this is a game, and this is not a game. Like, we take this very seriously. The Cowboys need to be good. So yeah, I'm just saying, like, that's bad. If that's true, again. The reports came out, and they are just reports at this point because no one knows for certain. And again, obviously, Mike McCarthy had his press conference and talked about it. And he's went on to say that you have to recognize the negativity that's out there. And he thinks it's important to handle things as men, so they will address it or in house, obviously. But again, it's not this. Whether this is true or not, whether they're not prepared, whether their game plans aren't good, where they don't really adjust, which is, again, where a lot of the issues that people have with Jason Garrett. So, again, what is different? Whether that's true or not, the fact that this got out 6 games into the season is bad. Because, again, if you have a team that doesn't or isn't going to buy into the coaching staff, like, you don't have a shot, really. Like, if your team doesn't believe in the coaches, offense or defense, how are they going to believe? They're not going to believe in the play calls, they're not going to believe in the schemes, they're not going to believe in the game plans. Like, how are you going to win games if the team doesn't buy in? Because you can't have, like, partial buy-ins or half buy-ins or some guys buy in and not, like, again, you need to have 53 guys buy into a mindset, into a philosophy, into a game plan, and different things in order to be successful. Like, it's hard if, like, a part of your team, whether it's, like, a position group or a unit or whatever, is, like, these guys don't know what they're talking about. Like, this is all dumb. Like, if that happens, then you're screwed, more or less. And that's what it sounds like the Cowboys could be headed down, which would be a disaster, again, in a division that is very winnable. Like, it's not like this division is that difficult. Everybody stinks. They still lead the division at 2-4. So, again, if they get some things figured out, which will be hard with the injuries that they have, they could be all right. But if guys don't believe in the coach, what can you do? Like I said, and that'll be an interesting thing, because if it gets like that bad, like if he's out of the locker room, potentially, after week 6, and who knows, maybe they win against Washington, and then everyone's all happy and like, hey, we figured it out, guys, and blah, blah, blah. And then they beat the Eagles next week. Like, hey, no, who knows? Maybe they can turn the season around. Maybe this will be the turning point. But if it doesn't, and the season goes bad, and they don't win the division, and they lose the division to the 7-8-1 Eagles, and again, people still feel the same way that they do about the coaches that they did to, like, this week. How does Mike McCarthy keep the job? And obviously you could say Dak, you can say injuries and different things, no normal offseason, blah, blah, blah. Like, cool. Understandable. All that stuff is fair. But again, I don't know if you're hearing about guys or you haven't really heard reports about people in Washington or like people in New York or in Carolina, like not buying into the coaches saying that they don't know what they're doing, they're bad at their jobs, things like that, even though they're not that successful. Obviously, the Panthers are like, I think they're 3-3 or whatever, so they're not like terrible like the like Washington and the Giants and Cowboys are. But again, they even like Brian Flores last year, that team wasn't that great, but they bought in and they played hard. Cowboys don't do that. The effort is bad. The technique, the different like the elementary stuff is bad. Again, if you get beat, you get beat. That is what it is. Like sometimes you're just not the better team. Like that happens. But if your effort is bad, then that's a problem. Especially this early in the season. Like how do you give up this early? So like I said, the Cowboys could have a problem on their hands if these reports are true and they continue to manifest themselves and can manifest themselves throughout the season. Like I said, if this gets nipped in the bud and like they figure it out this week against Washington, all right, then here's what it is, no big deal. We'll all be good. But if they don't, then they could have a problem on their hands. And that would definitely not be a delightful time down there in Dallas. And Mike McCarthy may be looking for a new job after just getting this job. So that would be a disaster, in my opinion. But like I said, I also want to talk about Tua, who will now be taking over the starting role in Miami. Again, this kind of came as a little bit of a surprise, only because Fitzpatrick wasn't playing that poorly. They are 3-3 at the time. They won two consecutive games by a combined score of 67, to 17. He has the seventh best QBR in the league. That's Fitzmagic. So again, it's not like he was struggling and it's like, you know what, we might as well turn the keys over to Tua. Like no, they're in second place in their division. Like they're right there. The Bills are only 4-2. Like it's not like they're head and shoulders ahead of them. And again, they played a competitive game against the Bills the first time they played. But apparently, I think that may be the reason that the Dolphins and their people realize that, like, hey, look, this division is competitive. And while Fitzmagic may be good, you know what Fitzmagic is. He is good until he's not. He's good until he's not. And if they think maybe Tua's lighting up in practice or whatever, they think, all right, going forward, Tua can give us the best chance to compete in this division. Hey, look, I'm not mad at the move. Because, again, I think it is better unless you have, like, an Aaron Rodgers or like, a guy like that, a solidly entrenched starter. Like, the young guys, getting them playing time in their first year is beneficial. Again, assuming it's not in a disaster of a situation. It was beneficial. You see, Joe Burrow has looked not too bad. He's looked all right given the circumstances. The line is terrible. Defense isn't that good, but he's looked all right. Justin Herbert has obviously looked very good. But then Jordan Love, obviously, he's not playing because they have Aaron Rodgers, different things. So again, you've seen other rookie quarterbacks in this class look good, so it's like, hey, look, why not see what Tua has? And hey, look, worst comes to worst, we weren't expecting to make the playoffs anyway this year. And again, I would imagine that they're not going to be like, when they're not going to go back to Fitzmagic, that would be kind of wild, in my personal opinion, to bring in Tua to then bench him, just depending on how he plays and things like that. Though he does get to start off with Aaron Donald, which isn't that fun. But after that, their schedule is not that difficult. They play the Cardinals, who, they're not great, but they're not like bad. The Chargers, who are at least competitive. The Broncos, the Jets. You know how I feel about the Jets. The Dolphins. Not the Dolphins. They are the Dolphins. The Bengals, who they're not anything special. The Chiefs, obviously, that's a tough one. The Patriots, they just lost to the Broncos, so we can't really say anything about them. The Raiders are up and down. Like I said, they beat the Raiders. They beat the Saints and the Chiefs. But then, like I said, they're still only 3-2 on the year. Like, it's not like they're anything special at this moment. Though they have a big game against the Bucs coming up this weekend and Sunday night football. So they lost to the Bills. They lost to the Patriots. So again, they're average. No, but again, that's like week 16, I think. Yeah, week 16, then they play the Bills to finish out the season. So again, the rest of their schedule, once you get past the Aaron Donald game and get his feet wet, like, it's not that crazy of a slate. So, like, hey, maybe the Dolphins, if Tua is who people thought he was coming out, and obviously pre-injury, if he's back healthy now and everything, I get it. Like I said, like, Fitzmagic playing decently well and keeping you around 7-9, 8-8 for the season does nothing for you long term. Does literally nothing. Unless, again, you make the playoffs. But again, it doesn't really do a whole lot for you. Getting 2 wins and seeing what he has this year, so you can see what you can build on, does a lot for you, whether or not you're good or bad. Or whether the team's good or bad. Or he's good or bad. Like, again, it just gets you him getting reps, getting hit, we're learning from his mistakes, different things. That's more beneficial to you than whatever potentially having a semi-competitive season with Ryan Fitzpatrick does, in my personal opinion. Like I said, I get both sides of why, like, hey, he's playing well, why bench him? But again, why would you not bench? Like, I'm not to say why would you not bench him, but again, you had Ryan Fitzpatrick last year. You drafted him to a 5th overall. You knew what it was. Like, you knew he was going to play at some point. And I said, after a bye, sounds like as good of a time as Eddie, if you were going to start him. And maybe this was always the plan, because like I said, he's playing well, so it seems like an odd time now. But maybe that was always the plan, because again, I thought it came out like 2 weeks ago they were considering going to Tua soon. Like I said, maybe the plan was always like get to the bye, give him 2 weeks, make sure he's all good and healthy, and then he'll start the last half of the season. Obviously, maybe they didn't expect to be 3-3, but still, if that was the plan, I don't think that's a bad plan. Like I said, I think it's beneficial to get those young guys reps as early as possible, especially at the quarterback position. But again, that's just me. So I'll see how it works out. Again, like I said, they don't play this week, so we won't have our first taste of Tua as a starter until the following week. And like I said, it'll be when Aaron Donald and the Rams, Jalen Ramsey, those type of guys come to town. So quite a bit of an awakening. And that's going to be kind of cool. He gets to play Justin Herbert and Joe Burrow in the second half of the year. So those will be fun games to monitor and keep track of. But yeah, shout out to Tua. Tua time. Like I said, it was going to happen at some point this year. Might as well. Might as well get in, see what he has. See what he's like. Like I said, see if he's healthy, different things. Like I said, again, he got his little like feet wet with the blowout winning against the Jets, but now he'll be the guy. He'll come in, prepare like the starter, take all the starter reps in practice, different things like that. Have a game plan tailored to him, different things. We'll see how it goes. Like I said, I don't know what to expect, seeing as the last time I saw him he was hurt, but at the very least, should be interesting. And like I said, if this is what the Dolphins, if this is what their coaching staff, this is what their management, front office, everybody agreed on, hey, look, I don't think Fitzpatrick's going to be that mad about it. It's not get benched on like a Super Bowl contender or anything like that. Like, again, he probably would have liked to start, but he seemed happy for Tua to be able to go in. Because again, he knows what time it is. He knows what the situation is. I don't think he's going to be that beat up over it. Again, they drafted him in the first round. Like, you knew what was going to happen. But hey, we'll see what happens when they take on the Rams in a few weeks. But speaking of Tua and young quarterbacks getting some playing time, I wanted to talk, I didn't talk about this before and I've been meaning to, but one, I wanted to talk about like some teams that have young quarterback situations that they need to figure out what they're going to do this year. And to that same effect, like, do we move on, or do teams nowadays move on from young quarterbacks too quickly? Like I said, with the Josh Rosen situation, or even like I said, like Mitch, or different things, or do they hang on too long? And maybe in the case of Mitch. So, and then this is more of a recent thing, not for forever, but just in a more recent situation. Like, do we give these quarterbacks as much time to develop as they need, or do we just go right to the next one? So, like I said, we'll discuss that right after the break. Stay right there.
Are you looking to get your college football fix? Looking to get the latest news on your favorite school's team? The GSMC College Football Podcast is your ticket to all things college football. Join us as we talk college football, from the national championship, the college rivalries, the bowl game, to the Heisman Trophy. To which conference is the best? We've got you covered for the Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, the Pac-12, ACC, and everything in between. Download the GSMC College Football Podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
And we're back here again on the GSMC Sports Podcast presented by GSMC Podcast Network. So I first wanted to start this segment discussing some of the teams and their potential quarterback dilemmas heading into this offseason, depending on how the rest of the season goes, obviously. So we'll start in New York or New Jersey, technically, because they both play at MetLife, which is in New Jersey, which is why it's weird that they call it New York, but whatever. It is what it is. The Giants and the Jets. We'll start with the Jets first. So when you look at Sam Darnold and the Jets situation, like, what do you do there? Because there's a legitimate chance they might finish with the number 1 pick. Like, don't know what game they're going to win. Like I said, they already traded a guy like literally minutes or I don't know if it was even an hour, but not long after their last game on Sunday. So I don't know if they cut Le'Veon Bell. Like, I don't know if a full fire sale is starting. Obviously, they already traded Jamal Adams, but like, I imagine they will continue to trade off different guys here and there. Not a lot. Like, I'm not expecting them to overhaul their whole roster, but again, you're gonna see a lot more young guys playing. You're gonna see maybe a vet or two getting traded or cut as the season goes on. So then it's just like I'm saying, there's a legitimate chance they could finish with number 1 pick because they are one of. Let me double check how many teams currently have no wins in the NFL. I know I think it's a couple. I don't know if it's a lot, but it is a couple. I thought. Yeah. Oh no, I'm wrong. It's just the Jets. Yeah, because Atlanta got their first win. The Giants got their first win. Minnesota already has a win. And Washington won their first game of the year against the Eagles somehow. The Texans and the Jags both have a win. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of teams that won. There's a lot of teams that only one win. There's about 1, 2, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So there's 9 teams with 1 win currently. But the Jets sit above them all with 0. And as I just going through their schedule, what game what game are you going to pencil them in as a lock to win? Not even just a lock. Like, what game are you going to pencil them in to be like, you know what? I think the Jets can win this game. Because I don't see it. Like, maybe the Tua Dolphins game? Like, maybe? Maybe the Chargers game, because again, neither of those teams are good. And like, are you really expecting them to beat? Obviously, not expecting them to beat the Bills and Chiefs. Like, well, okay, that's not even joke there. But you expecting them to beat the Patriots? Expecting them to beat the Dolphins when we just saw what happened when they played the Dolphins? Granted, Joe Flacco won't be starting, but you would eventually think by the end of the season. Like, do you expect them to beat the Raiders or the Browns, Seahawks, Rams? Like, what game do you expect them to win? So, like I said, there's a legitimate chance they could end up with the number 1 overall pick. And now, Joe Douglas has no ties to Sam Darnold. He was brought in after he was drafted. They're going to fire Adam Gase, whether it's at the end of the season, middle of the season, it doesn't really matter. He's gone. It's over for him. A new head coach is going to come in and be like, maybe I like Sam. Maybe I think Sam could be good. But also, Trevor Lawrence is available. Again, assuming Trevor Lawrence is healthy and everything, like, there's going to be no issues there. But Trevor Lawrence is going to be available. I mean, no offense to Sam Darnold, but I'd give up on Sam Darnold for Trevor Lawrence as well. That's the thing. It's like, but will the Jets do that? Or will they, like, trade the pick to, I don't know, to Washington or to the, I mean, you're not going to trade him to the Giants. You don't want you don't want to be the reason that you traded, or you don't want to be the reason why a star is drafted in New York. It's because you gave up the pick. Like I said, do you trade the pick to the Jags or to Minnesota or Atlanta if they're continue to be bad? Like do you give up on Sam Darnold? And should you give up on Sam Darnold? That's kind of the point of this segment, is that, like, should teams give up on their young quarterbacks so quickly? Like I said, Sam Darnold has had 3 years in the league. Yes. Last year's cut short due to the mono. Well, he had missed some games due to the mono situation. Like, that was rough. And also, Adam Gase has been his head coach, so you don't really know. He's supposed to be the quarterback whisperer, offensive guru, if you will, but he is not at all. So again, do you give him a fair shake, or do you give him a fair shake, or should you give him a fair shake, I should say, with a new head coach? There are arguments for it. The offensive line has been bad his entire time there. They tried to sign some guys. They didn't. They weren't that good. Here's what it is. They let Robbie Anderson, his best receiver, walk for Like I said, you could have traded him, could have tried to do something. Like I said, they brought in Rashad Perriman. He's been hurt. Shocker. Denzel Mims hasn't really been able to play. Jameson Crowder's been fine when he's been out there, but he's not out there that long. Just cut Le'Veon Bell, traded Jamal Adams. So like I said, what are you trying to do? I mean, you drafted Mekhi Becton, who he looks good, but then again, you had your coach out there and playing while he was hurt, and now he's hurt. So again, like, what are you doing to try to protect the future of your franchise, quote unquote? If this is what you're surrounding him with, and this is how you support him, is by sending out his best offensive lineman out there with one arm to then get hurt, and now he can't play at all. It's not like he can play and he's hurt. Like, now he's like actually hurt. So again, what was the point behind that? Other than, again, I guess maybe Gibbs was trying to save his job or whatever. But like I said, now Becton's hurt. So what good does that do for you at this point? Oh, actually, no, take that back. Did he play? Oh, he might have come back. Oh, he was limited, so maybe he did play on Sunday. I don't know. But regardless, they got him hurt. Well, that's the big story here. They got him hurt. Again, because of coaching malpractice. Like I said, is that if you're the Jets, do you give up on a quarterback? I mean, do you go draft Trevor Lawrence number 1? If you're the Giants, do you give up on Daniel Jones? Like I said, he's had a similar situation. Their line hasn't been good. The tackle they drafted in Andrew Thomas, he's actually not good so far. Again, at least Becton was good when he played. He's not that good. Again, the weapons are not bad. Slayton was a good find in the 5th round. Golden Tate's been bad. Sterling Shepard, they can't stay healthy. Who else? Evan Ingram is solid, but has some drop issues, and then Saquon obviously hasn't been able to stay. He's missed all of this year, and then last year he played most of it hurt. And then obviously the defense has been bad, and he was coached by Pat Shurmur last year. So, again, if you're the Giants, do you give up on Daniel Jones? Because Joe Judge is probably still going to be there. But new GM will be in there. He has no ties to Daniel Jones. There's no reason for him to stick around. I say, do you give up on Daniel Jones for a chance at Justin Fields or Trevor Lawrence? If you're Washington, obviously you kind of gave up on Dwayne Haskins anyway. But like, if you like what you see out of Kyle Allen, well, okay, who are we kidding? If they get in that position, they're drafting one of those guys. They're not. You're not turning the keys over to your franchise over to Kyle Allen. No offense to Kyle Allen, but he's not even. At least Darnold and Daniel Jones, like, they were high draft picks, so it's the reason, and just understand why you would make a big investment into them. With what's it called? With Kyle Allen, you're not doing that. And I'm not saying you should or shouldn't. They probably should be given a little bit more time to Haskins. It's not like he was great, and it's not like the offense has been like, oh, we're so much better now with Dwayne Haskins out of there. Like, no, they still stink. Kyle Allen didn't completely lose them the game, but like kind of did, because his fumble that got returned for a touchdown was the deciding score. Again, they scored at the end, but then they went for 2 and didn't get it, so it doesn't matter. They didn't fumble. Maybe they go on and win that game. So again, it's not like they've been great. Like I said, do give up on him. Minshew Mania. Again, obviously everyone was all happy and different things. It was like, oh yeah, Minshew, like, he'll be alright. He didn't look that bad for a 6th round pick. And again, he hasn't even been that bad this year. It's no decent number of interceptions, but completing about 67% of his passes, 11 touchdowns. Granted, but you knew the team was going to stink. Like, it's not like we expect them to be good this year. They're 1-5 with their one win being against the Colts, which is like kind of wild. That's the one team they beat, is the Colts, and again they hung tough with the Titans as well. But again, they're 1-5. Who knows how many games they're going to win this year? But yeah, it's just like it's an interesting spot some of these teams are in with their young quarterbacks. Oh well, I mean, Gardner Minshew is probably not the future of the franchise. Obviously, they drafted him to maybe be a backup at some point to Nick Foles, because again they signed Nick Foles to be the future of their franchise, and then they traded him away because of Minshew. But now they're probably going to give up on that if Trevor Lawrence is available, or even Justin Fields. But yeah, it's just like, should these teams give up on their young quarterback, and 2, do teams give up on the young quarterback too quickly? And is that worse? Because like I said, you saw with Josh Rosen, like, again, it worked out with Kyler. But Josh Rosen never really got a fair shake in the league. I'm not saying he deserves one or he's like supremely talented or whatever, but we really don't know. In Arizona, that offensive line was terrible. in Miami, they were actively trying to lose last year when they traded away all the people. So again, it's hard to. Now I think it's on the Bucks practice squad. I would assume still. But yes, like I'm saying now, it's just that like we don't even know what he is because we never really got the chance to see him. And again, is it fair? Is it unfair? I mean, life isn't fair, so it is what it is. But at the same time, it's like, what? Yeah, okay, he's still on the. It seems to be like he's still on the Bucks. I mean, it's just like, do you give up on, or do you do Josh Rosen give up on Daniel Jones? Give up on. Granted, it's not after 1 year, but just like I said, I could give up on Daniel Jones 2 years in. Give up on Dwayne Haskins 2 years in. You haven't really had a whole lot of time to see what they are. I don't know. That's what I'm saying. I don't know if you should. Well, take that back. I would give up on all of them for Trevor Lawrence. So that part is fair. But again, if am I going to trade the farm? Like if I'm at 5, if I'm the Giants, I'm at like 5 or 6. Am I trading the farm for Trevor Lawrence to get rid of Daniel Jones, depending on how he looks this season? Maybe. Or do I bring him in there with a different GM that is actually good at his job, that can put some good pieces around him from an offensive line standpoint, and even help him out with some better defensive players, things like that. Maybe more healthy weapons. Like maybe. Like I said, the same thing with Sam Darnold. Do I give him a chance with like a legitimately like good head, or in theory good offensive mind, in like an Eric Bieniemy or like a Brian Dable from the Bills, or somebody like, again, or whatever hot assistant from the college or pro ranks, his name is going to be floated out there during like the next coaching cycle? Or do I said just screw it and like let me just go straight to the Trevor Lawrence train? I don't know. So like I said, it's just an interesting spot because like you've seen teams be willing to give up on quarterbacks quickly. Like I said, Washington is done with Haskins. Clearly. Like I said, you don't bench him for Kyle Allen unless you're completely done with him. Because Kyle Allen is not that much better. If better at all than Dwayne Haskins is. You saw it with Josh Rosen. You saw it kind of sort of with Mitch. Like I said, the Bears were 2-0, where they probably lose to the Falcons, yes. But they were 2-0 at the time he got benched. He's still only in his 4th year, still kind of young. But again, they decided they'd seen enough. And at least with 4 years in, like, okay, you kind of have an idea of who the quarterback is. But after a year, 2 years, do you really know what a quarterback is? 100%. Like you have an idea of whether you can play or not. I agree there, but you don't know. What, especially on a team as dysfunctional as Washington, or as a team as dysfunctional as the Jets, or of recent years as the Giants. Like you don't. It's hard to. This is not these guys are playing with Andy Reid and the Chiefs offense, and they stunk. All right, yeah. Then this guy just stinks. But again, that's not the situation they were in. Like they were with bad head coaches, bad front offices, bad organizations. Recently, at least, the Giants all over the course of NFL history have been a good franchise, but recently they haven't been very dysfunctional. Literally the only reason not that they're not talked about more is because the Jets on the other side of the hallway are just as bad, if not more dysfunctional, in their own right. So again, it's an interesting spot like a lot of these teams are going to be in this offseason in terms of what to do with their young quarterbacks, assuming things don't get better, which they probably won't. But again, if things get better, then all right, that answers the question. You're cool. But if things don't get better, then you're stuck in a tough spot, in a position where you have the opportunity to maybe give up on your young quarterback that's only in year 2, year 3 as of right now, and go all in with the rookie, whether it's Trevor Lawrence or Justin Fields or Trey Lance or whoever it may be. Like I said, we've seen it happen and work out. We saw it happen with Kyler Murray. Cliff Kingsbury came in and says, I want Kyler Murray. Yeah, like, sorry, Josh Rosen. And boom, you're gone. So Mitch, Matt Nagy was like, after year 3, like, you know what? I've seen enough of Mitch. If he's good next year, all right, cool, we'll stick it out. If not, we're going to Nick Foles. A couple games in, he's like, screw it, we're going to Nick Foles. They're 5-1. Like I said, there's pros and cons of doing it, and I respect general managers and front officers for realizing a mistake. But it's like, when does it happen too quickly? There's the Josh Rosen, maybe he's better the second year with better offensive line or better talent around him. Is he Kyler Murray? No, he's not going to be Kyler Murray because he can't run like that. But maybe he's better. Maybe Daniel Jones will be better with a better offensive line in front of him. Maybe Sam Darnold will be better with a better head coach, a better offensive play call, a better offensive scheme. Maybe the same thing with Dwayne Haskins. Maybe he would have been better if he didn't have the coaching staff they literally gave away his best offensive tackle because they couldn't figure something out with Trent Williams. Trent Williams still could have been there blocking on the left side for him. Now he's got whoever. And, well, granted, he's not in anymore, but you get the point. Like, they do whoever they have Terry McLaurin, but, like, who else is, like, really good on Washington outside of their front seven, obviously? Like, who's, like, you know what, that's our guy. Well, maybe on offense, like, who else is their guy? Like, Antonio Gibson, he may be good, but, I mean, he was more of a receiver than a running back in college. The rest of their receivers aren't that good. Their line isn't that good. But again, they decided, like, no, screw it, we're going with Kyle Allen. Then again, maybe it works out. Well, not with Kyle Allen, but maybe it works out with the next quarterback they have. But again, it's the interesting conversation to look at is, like, or should teams be so willing to give up on their young quarterback so quickly if they feel like they made a mistake? Or should it just be like any other position where it's like, if you think you made a mistake at tackle, all right, you go out in the next draft another tackle. Think you made a mistake at linebacker, or you're not going to wait 3 or 4 years to give him a shot to be good. Well, most teams aren't going to wait 3 or 4 years to wait for him to be good. Like, if he stinks, all right, we're going to trade for somebody, we're going to sign somebody, do something else. Like I said, quarterbacks usually get a little bit more leeway, and to a degree, I think it's warranted because quarterbacks specifically can be a product of the piece around him, both good and bad. Like I said, is Ryan Tannehill as good as he is in Tennessee without Derrick Henry back there? We don't know. But we know he looks a lot better than he did in Miami with Adam Gase. Who else? If Patrick Mahomes got drafted by the Bears, would he be as good as he is now? Especially when he had John Fox the first year? I don't know. Again, he'd still be Patrick Mahomes. He still have the talent, but he's with Andy Reid. He has Travis Kelce. He has Tyreek Hill. So again, I'm not saying any of these guys could be Patrick Mahomes. They went to the Chiefs. But again, we saw Alex Smith do great things in the Chiefs offense. Not these type of things, but he was very good with the Chiefs. They didn't win the Super Bowl, but he was very good. So that's what I'm saying. Like, is some of it, especially with these young quarterbacks, a situation. And a lot of players, in all sports, young players, it's situation. So this is the interesting spot these teams are going to be in, where they have the opportunity to give up on the young quarterbacks early on in their careers, and they're going to have got to make a tough decision. And should they or shouldn't they? To potentially draft Trevor Lawrence, who, again, he's great in college, but that doesn't mean anything for the pros. We have no idea what he'll be in the pros. I think he'll still be good. But you get the point. Like, we don't know. At least we know, to a degree, and granted, Daniel Jones is talking about Daniel, he turns the ball over too much. But again, he can do NFL things from the quarterback position. He just fumbles too much. And sometimes makes bonehead decisions. But, so does Josh Allen. But, again, Josh Allen, he got a little bit better at it. Now he was in the MVP race for 4 games in year 3. Look at Baker. Baker looked like the next big thing as a rookie. And now he's regressed. And now he's, at best, the third quarterback in his own draft class. And that's, like I said, that's best case scenario. He's the third best. Because he's obviously behind Lamar, and he's behind Josh Allen. And at the minimum, who even knows, like, again, how you feel about Sam Darnold, obviously Josh Rosen. He's not playing. But again, maybe you think Sam Darnold could be better if he had Odell and Jarvis Landry and Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt back there. Because Baker has all those guys, and he's still kind of like, And Sam Darnold didn't have anything close to that. The best thing he had was Le'Veon Bell and Robbie Anderson, who's now gone. Well, both of them are now gone. So again, it's interesting. It's a scenario to think about, an interesting situation to think about with these young quarterbacks and these teams, and how we view young quarterbacks in the league now. Because I feel like a lot more people are willing to give up on them sooner, which again I'm not mad about. Because if you make a mistake, fix your mistake. Don't just hang on to a mistake because you want to be proven right. Like, no, that's stupid. But at the same time, it's like, is it all the quarterback's fault? Like, again, if you put Trevor Lawrence on the Jets right now, are they a lot better? Look at Joe Burrow. He's looked all right, but he's looked good, but the Bengals are still 1-4, 1-4-1. Look at Justin Herbert. He's looked great when he's played. The Chargers still haven't won a game with him as a starter. No, granted, they look better than Daniel Jones and Sam Darnold had this year. But again, you get the point. Like, just because you have a good quarterback doesn't mean you're going to be successful. Like, again, you take Sam Darnold off and put Trevor Lawrence on the Jets right now. Or next year, even. Are they that much better just because they have Trevor Lawrence? That's going to be the question these teams have to decide. It's offseason. It should be an interesting one. Because, again, that's not an easy question to answer. But it's going to be one they're going to have to try to figure out the answer to this coming offseason. And speaking of offseason, before we get out of here, I want to talk about the NBA and some interesting storylines heading into the offseason, interesting decisions, things like that. Obviously, we talked about Chris Paul. Last time, we're not going to talk about that. But just like Giannis, what should he do? Sign the deal, not sign the deal, ask for a trade, things like that. What does the Warriors do with the second pick? Like Sixers, different. Like I said, we'll talk about different things. Nets, what should they do? Like I said, we'll talk about all that right after the break. So stay right there.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC, Invicta FC, Bellator, and one championship. We got the fights covered. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts. Past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
And we're back here again on the GSMC Sports Podcast, presented by GSMC Podcast Networks. Like I said, just going to look through as with this NBA season done. I figured I'd just look at a couple of the bigger decisions and bigger storylines of this upcoming offseason and free agency and draft and things like that. And like I said, just discuss them before we get started. Also, shout out to the Pacers. I know they got a new coach today. Don't know is that guy today. I think it was yesterday. Don't know how to pronounce his name. Used to be with the Raptors. If I remember correctly, I'm going to Google it so I can try to remember how to pronounce it. But I know they got a new coach, so that'll be good. And obviously, he comes from a good organization. Nate Bjorkgren. I don't know if I pronounced it right. But again, he's the new head coach of the Indiana Pacers. So shout out to him. He's been an assistant with the Raptors, was with the Suns from 2015 to 2017, and was then an assistant with the Raptors from 2018 to 2020. So shout out to him. Obviously, he was a part of that 2019 Raptors squad that won the title, and also he won a D-League championship as a assistant with the Iowa Energy. I think either them or the Warriors. This says in 2011, but I'm like, not exactly sure which one. So, yeah, regardless, shout out to him. Oh, yeah, it was with the Energy that he won the championship. So, again, shout out to him. He will now be the head coach of the Pacers. See how that goes for them. Like I said, just looking at some of the bigger decisions or some of the bigger storylines. The first one, obviously, will be what happens with Giannis. Obviously, he has the opportunity. I'm going to say that he will. I say that he should. But he has the opportunity to sign a 5-year, $220 million deal this offseason. Or he could wait until next offseason to sign it. Or, like I said, he could just not sign it, period, and become a free agent. We'll see what happens. But yeah, he has the opportunity to do that this year. I believe now, for me, that is a lot of money. I will most likely not see anything like that in my lifetime. That's a lot of money, and in my opinion, that seems like it's hard or would be hard to turn down. But it seems like since the Supermax has been implemented, obviously, again, a lot of guys have signed the Supermax and stuff like that, but it hasn't completely tied superstars to these smaller market or even potentially even bigger market franchises. Like, no one has been like, you know what, I'm going to just stay with this team because, obviously teams have signed the Supermax. Like, again, like Bradley Beal, he signed a Supermax, probably shouldn't have, but hey, it is what it is. Again, people have signed max deals to stay with teams when they maybe shouldn't have, but again, they haven't. Usually, if it doesn't work out, they usually end up demanding a trade or asking for a trade or getting traded, things like that. So it's not like they will just stick it out the whole 5 years if things don't work out with the team. Like, maybe they'll sign it, but then again, a lot of people have hit free agency. Like, it's not like it's a lock that like the Supermax made it so like, oh, you know what, I'm not going to leave. Like, look at KD. He signed a max deal. They know KC, but he's like, you know what, I really want to win a ring, and I think the Golden State Warriors give me the best chance to do that. So I'm going to go to Golden State, and what do you know? He won back-to-back rings, back-to-back Finals MVPs. So again, he could have stayed in OKC, signed a max deal, been happy. We saw Paul George did that, stayed in OKC, signed the max deal, and got traded literally the next year. So, like I said, the Clippers signed Blake Griffin to a big deal, and then that following season traded him to the Pistons. So like I said, the max deal hasn't really tied teams to a certain specific player and vice versa. I haven't tied a player to a specific franchise just because they signed that max deal. So, he could sign it this offseason and it could mean everything, could mean nothing. Who knows? But again, I don't know exactly what he's going to do. Or he could not sign it, wait till free agency, see how the season goes, see how it plays out. See if they can get to the NBA Finals or even the Conference Finals. See if they can win a championship and then be like, you know what, I'm gonna stay, or pull the quiet. You're like, no, what, I've done what I can here in Toronto. Let me go to the Clippers. Now again, if he stayed in Toronto, maybe they get back to the finals. So there is that. So again, you gotta not every time do you make the quote unquote best decision. But again, if he wanted to live in LA, then there was nothing to stop him from living in LA. In my own personal opinion. Or I guess obviously there is also the demand to trade option. I don't think he will do that. And I think at the very least he'll run it back this next season and see what happens. But in my own personal opinion, I think just point blank period, he should just wait. Just wait. Just see what the Bucks can do. See who they can acquire. See who they can bring in. See what happens development wise with the team before. Like I said, I'm not. And again, maybe this isn't a big deal. And I think that's the thing is that like some of these guys, like the money isn't the motivating factor for them. Some people, I feel like Giannis is a similar player like this. Like obviously you want to make money and be successful, but I think he just wants to win and be successful in that manner, like with like championships and things like that. Like, I don't think he wants to be successful in terms of like how much money is in his bank account. Obviously, some people that's what they're gonna be remembered by. I mean, ISO Joe Johnson didn't win a championship, but he's legend at the bank, as Bomani Jones like to say, and that might be just as good, if not better. I'd rather have a millions upon hundreds of millions of dollars in my bank account than win a championship, in my own personal opinion. Granted, I will never be in this opportunity to have that happen, but again, if my choices are hundreds of millions of dollars or potentially just one ring, give me the hundreds of millions of dollars. Because I could have the ring and end up broke. But hey, like, and then you see the guys like they pawn off their rings or whatever. Again, obviously it's great to win a championship. I'm not going to sit here and act like you don't. Again, as I like to quote on this podcast, you play to win the game. So I'm never going to be like, oh, you shouldn't be actually trying to win. But at the same time, it's like, if you don't win, at the least you could do is make money. Like if I make hundreds of millions of dollars and not win, I think I could be all right in retirement if that happened. Like I wouldn't be happy about it. Like again, you may get the no rings jokes and blah 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 whatever. But again, I don't like Melo. Obviously, does he want to win a championship? Yes. Is he maybe a little mad at himself for re-signing with the Knicks when he could have signed with the Bulls? Maybe. But again, he's going to be legend at the bank. His life's going to be good when he retires. He's not going to have to worry about that. So there is that. So like I said, I don't think money's going to be the motivating factor for him to be like, all right, I can't turn down the $220 million. To be honest, I think he really just wants to win. Like I said, a la KD. Something like that. So I could see him waiting to free agency and see what happens. Like I said, I'm not going to say he's going to go anywhere. He may re-sign with the Bucks for all we know. But it's, again, I think it's at least a good idea for him. Especially now he's a back-to-back MVP. Now I put you in a different pedestal. Like you're judged, or you're going to be judged differently in terms of your legacy and things like that later in your career if you don't win at some point. And again, not that he has to win this year or next year, or not this year, obviously, but like next year or the year after that, or he has to win soon. It's not that big of a deal, but again, he does have to win at some point now that you've multiple-time MVP, Defensive Player of the Year, multiple-time All-Star, All-NBA caliber player. Like, all right, you have all that. Where's the ring? So, like I'm saying, when you get to that level of star and that level of caliber of player, then you're graded differently. And I think for him, like, winning a ring will help validate his career. More so than it would, say, like a guy like Kyle Kuzma, for example. Like Kyle Kuzma, he won a ring. Cool. That's not going to change anybody's, other than he's going to be regarded as an NBA champion. That's not going to be like, oh, when you look at Kyle Kuzma and his legacy, you're going to be like, oh, that's not really going to be a deciding factor on if he's better or worse than player X all the time. Because again, that's not in the conversation he's going to be in. And so when you get to these great level players, like, all right, like Steph having 3, KD having 2, LeBron having 4, like those kind of things, like those things matter now. They do when you look at and compare players all the time. Like I said, for Kyle Kuzma, it's not going to matter. But now that Giannis is getting into rarefied and glorified air, it's going to matter for him. So like I said, I think it's best for him to wait. We'll see what he does. But just wait. And also I do think, like I mentioned before, him and Bam have the same agent. And I believe Bam will be up for a rookie level extension. Obviously not a max deal, but again, it's a similar concept to where like he could sign a deal, but maybe it's better for him to wait and like, hey, maybe they could use that money from him waiting to find a max slot to maybe sign a Giannis or sign somebody like that. Or like again, because 2021 is supposed to be like a really big free agency class, potentially, if guys opt out and different things. So, hey, maybe it's for the best to be like, Bam, like just hold off on a sign that extension. And again, who knows the heater you're going to offer? I doubt they would even offer it just to be safe. Because what if he does sign it? Then you're kind of locked in. Not that they shouldn't want to be locked in the Bam. Like he is again. You could very much argue their best player, even with Jimmy Butler. At least they're the most talented player. But again, it's like, hey, look, if you don't sign this deal, we could save a little bit of money. Maybe his agent can communicate that with him, and then they could talk and be like, hey, look, if you do this, then maybe Giannis will come, blah blah blah. So. We'll see, but that's going to be one of the biggest storylines this offseason, is if Giannis signs his Supermax extension, which I don't think he will, and I don't think he should. But, again, I'm not Giannis. So, we'll see what decision he makes. Also, one of the bigger things this offseason, and obviously heading into the draft, will be what the Warriors do with that second overall pick. Because, obviously, they have Steph Curry, they have Klay, and they have Draymond, who are 32, 30, and 30 respectively. So they're not, they're not young. Klay is coming off of a year-long absence due to a knee injury. Steph basically missed all year. Draymond was in and out. But, again, these guys aren't getting any younger. And at this point, I don't know I don't know. I imagine they want to compete for championships. They're not worried about bringing along new guys or mentoring guys. Again, not to say that they wouldn't do that. But I think they care more about winning championships at this stage in their career. Even though they've won 3. Like they've gotten a good amount, but I don't think they want to stop at 3. I don't think that was the plan. I think they planned on when everybody got back healthy, competing for a championship again, reclaiming their spot atop the Western Conference, even without KD. I'm going to say, with that being said, wouldn't it make sense to then not draft somebody at number 2 and trade that pick for a more useful player that would line up more within the Steph and Klay and Draymond's timeline, potentially? Now again, maybe they package that pick with Klay or Draymond to trade for somebody like, I don't know, maybe a Giannis, or like I said, I don't think they're gonna trade for like Embiid or anybody like that, or Ben Simmons. I don't know. Like I said, we'll see what happens with some of these players this offseason. Like I said, the number 2 overall pick. Plus even like Andrew Wiggins to make some money work. Like they have options. Everybody but Steph is obviously off the table, but everybody else could very much be a trade asset. I would think. Again, I don't think they will. I don't think they're going to go into the offseason being like, we're definitely trading Klay or we're definitely trading Draymond. But I think for the right player and the right package, they could. Like I said, maybe does it James Wiseman or does LaMelo Ball, does he help them as much as a vet or like a solidified star in the league at least in terms of next season, no, I don't think so. Like 5 years from now, sure. But next season, in terms of like winning a championship while Steph and Clay and Draymond are still like pretty good, as opposed to when they get a little bit older, I think it makes sense. It may make sense to trade the pick and try to line it up better with their timeline. So like I said, it's an interesting situation and what they should try to do and what they will try to do. Like I said, I would imagine they're going to try to compete and do that whatever way that means. If they think that means drafting somebody at number 2, cool. If I think that means trading that pick plus some players for somebody else that they think could more that could boost their potential in this upcoming season or in the next season, also cool. Like I said, I think they should trade the pick because as much as having, like I said, a James Wiseman or LaMelo on their team would be beneficial, at least long term, because again, that gives them a young, cheaper potential star to go along with their 3 main guys, or even 4 if you consider Wiggins a main guy. At the same time, if you want to compete for a championship, I don't know if LaMelo Ball or James Wiseman as a rookie is the missing piece. And like I said, Steph, Clay, and Draymond aren't getting any younger, and 2 of them are coming off of basically season-ending injuries, where they basically sat out. So again, that may be good, but that may be bad at the same time. So again, we'll see. I think they should trade the pick, but we'll see. Like I said, I'm not Bob Myers, I'm not Steve Kerr, I'm not their ownership. I don't know what they'll do. Like I said, I would trade the pick, but I don't know what they will do. And then, like just quickly on like the East side of things, like with the Nets, should they stick with Karras or try to get a Drew Holiday, try to get a Bradley Beal, that kind of player to be their quote unquote third star to pair alongside KD and Kyrie, obviously? Or should they keep like Karras LeVert and let him grow into that role that I think he could excel at? Like I said, we've seen, I mean, this was the bubble, but we've seen how he looked as a number 1 option. Like, he looked like a very capable player as a number 1. Granted, the Nets, as him as their 1, aren't going to be that good of a team. But he showed you that, hey, look, if the other 2 guys don't have it that night, like, maybe I could handle the load. And that's kind of what you want from your third. So you want a guy that can, if your first 2 guys aren't really doing much, like, hey, look, I can handle the offense. I can handle the offense for tonight. No big deal. Like I say, Karras has shown that. Granted, he still has to stay healthy. But then so do all of them. KD just missed the whole year. Kyrie's had injury concerns or injury issues throughout his entire career. So, I can understand maybe not wanting to bank on Karras. But again, I think they should. But what will they do? That's a different question. Again, obviously, KD and those guys have said good things about Karras and him potentially being that guy, but it doesn't also mean they wouldn't want Bradley Beal on the team. Doesn't mean they wouldn't also want Drew Holiday potentially on the team, because Bradley Beal is not so much, but Drew Holiday, they need somebody that can defend. Karras may become a decent defender, but they don't have anybody right now on the wing that can lock somebody down one-on-one. They don't. Like I said, that's what made KD on the Warriors so great, is that like they had guys in Clay or Draymond or Iggy that could guard people on the wing. So then KD could just kind of do his thing around the paint, patrol the rim, protect the rim, things like that. It made it easier. But if there's going to be a layup line in there with Kyrie and Spencer and Joe Harris, though he tries, but like you get the point. Like they don't have that kind of guy right now. So maybe it makes sense to try to acquire a third star and not have Karras. But like I said, I wouldn't, but I don't know that the Nets won't, if that makes sense. Like I would be like, you know what, I think Karras can be that guy. But again, if you think you need more than just Karras, then Karras has become a very attractive piece right now. Him, Jared Allen, Spencer Dinwiddie, like you have some guys that you could put together a halfway decent package to trade for that third star, quote unquote. But yeah, I guess we're gonna see how it goes. And lastly, with the Sixers, will they kind of stand pat or make a big trade? Now, if we're talking about big trade involving Embiid or Simmons, no, don't do that. Don't do that. That's stupid. That's stupid. I think they can coexist. Now we're talking about Al Horford or Tobias Harris. Now, hey, look, depending on what you get back, now we're talking about something. Like if you can find a way to get Al Horford and get him off the books and bring in Buddy Hield, so now you got some bona fide shooting on the perimeter. All right, maybe we could talk. Maybe I would consider that. Like I said, I don't know exactly what you would get for Tobias Harris at this point. Not to say he's a bad player, but like I don't know what you would trade Tobias Harris to get back, if that makes sense. But Al Horford, like I said, he's not a fit, clearly. So you could trade him for some shooting. I mean, shoot, even trade him for Drew Holiday if the Pelicans would want him. I wouldn't do that if I'm the Pelicans, but if they wanted a big guy or a bigger guy, like, hey, look, if they don't want Drew Holiday, they want to they want to run with the younger guys, shoot, bring him back to Philly. I think that could be good. Ball handler, again, he's not a knockdown shooter. He's a ball handler, can shoot, and can defend. And he's known around the league as being perennially underrated. So I think maybe that could work. So again, the Sixers have some options as well. Like I said, if the trade involves Embiid or Simmons, don't do it. Well, I think they can make this work. I think. But again, I'm a fan of both those guys. As long as they need the right personnel around them, personally. Because again, if Kawhi doesn't hit that shot, maybe they go into the conference finals, maybe they go to the finals. Maybe they beat the Warriors. Because again, the Warriors were depleted. It's not like they were healthy. Like that, it wasn't the full strength Warriors team. And also, who would have guarded Embiid? If and when they got there. I mean, JaVale? Like, really? Come on. So yeah, I think they could have maybe even won a championship last year if Kawhi doesn't hit that 4 bounce, but he did. And the rest is history, as they like to say. So, like I said, if you're talking about Embiid and Simmons, no trade for me. But if we're talking about Al Horford or even Tobias, for the right offer, like I said, I'm not just trading them away from anything or for anything, but with the right offer, maybe we can make something work. But that'll do it for me here today on the GSMC Sports Podcast presented by GSMC Podcast Network. I want to thank you guys, as always, for listening to me talk about sports. If you haven't already, subscribe to the podcast. I think I said that right. Subscribe to the podcast. Make sure you never miss an episode. Make sure you're all on top when we drop our latest stuff. Also, if you could, please as well, give us a 5-star rating and write a nice review. Very appreciated. Very helpful. Also, what you guys like. If you dislike the ways you can improve. All that fun stuff. Also, if you're on social media, we're on social media. So you can find us there. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. We can talk. We can chat. We can debate. We can discuss. We can talk about the World Series. Do you think the Dodgers got this in the bag? Do you think the Rays can come back? Love to hear your opinions on that. What do you think about Rob Manfred's opinions on the rule changes and what he wants to implement or what he wants to keep, I just say, for next season? How do you feel about that? Like I said, this is a weird week in the NFL, so who are your top teams now? I know I didn't do my power rings or anything, but like, do the Titans move up? Do the Steelers move up? Do the Packers move down? Do the Bucks move up? Like, do the Bills move down? Like, what are you doing with that? Also, like I said, what do you think's in store for this offseason in the NBA? Like, what big moves or big trades or big, like I said, decisions do you think will end up being made this offseason? Anything, like I said, feel free to reach out and let us know how you're feeling. As always, before I get out of here, I want to give a shout out to the essential workers that have worked tirelessly through this pandemic to make sure everybody's safe and healthy, or at least as safe and as healthy as we can be. So, doctors, firefighters, nurses, EMTs, first responders, postal service workers, retail workers, grocery store workers, delivery drivers, all those people, like I said, that have had to work tirelessly throughout this pandemic in conditions that may or may not be as safe as they should be, for pay that may or may not be as high as it should be. Like I said, you are appreciated. You've made life easier and safer in most cases. So, like I said, if no one else appreciates you, I do. So there is that. Also, if you're still going out to bars and restaurants like it's not that cold outside where you live, again, just make sure you tip your waiters, waitresses, bartenders appropriately. The service industry, like many industries, was hit hard by the pandemic. A lot of restaurants may not make it. A lot of servers may very well be out of jobs come winter in like the Northeast or other colder places. So again, if you can, just tip them nicely. It'll go a long way and it'll be very appreciated, I would think. Also, wear your mask. It's not that hard. But that'll do it for me here today. I've been Chris Blades. That has been my time. And until next time, peace out.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.GSMC.com. GSMCpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. From movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.